Alright, so in this video we're going to learn how to break glass for mosaics, so it should be a pretty short video. But first what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put on my safety goggles. I put these on, and I'm going to get a bit of glass that's suitable for mosaic. So what's suitable for mosaic is usually something that is long and skinny, maybe about 1 centimeter. And I tell my students to keep your pieces to about 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter and no bigger than that for a mosaic. One thing to keep in mind about glass is that you can't cut it like a piece of paper. You have to cut it from edge to edge. It's the only way it works. So you have to start at one edge, cut all the way through to the other edge. In order to do that, we have to do what's called scoring first, and we just make a hairline fracture on the glass, and we do that with a glass cutter. So here's my glass cutter, and there is a certain way to hold this. There are a couple ways to hold it, but this is the way that I was taught, and this is the way that I teach my students. So you want to make sure first that the nail or the screw right here is pointing up, and I tell them to hold it like a pencil initially, and then to take the tip and the back so it's standing completely straight up from the table. So if we line this up at the table, it'd make a perfect 90-degree angle right here. So that's how I hold my cutter. The other thing is that some people hold it different ways. A couple different ways I've seen is people will grip it like this and hold the top ball like this. I've seen people hold it like that. That's the only really other alternate way I've seen it held. What I feel is a disadvantage to that way is it's hard to see the back of the where the wheel is going, and it's right in the middle of the cutter. So with firm pressure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some score lines on my glass. And you should hear a scratch noise, and all this is a little gross. It should look like a hair is laying on the glass if you do it correctly. So from edge to edge, and I'm going to take the cutter and I'm going to make sure that I stop it with my thumb and it doesn't roll onto the table because this could bend the wheel. So I'm going to go from edge to edge, stop it with my thumb, and I'm just going to keep going. So I don't know if this is visible on the camera, but now I have these score lines that go all the way down this piece of glass. Now I have to break it. The tool that you should use to break it are these, what we call combo pliers, combination pliers, or grozers. Now how you hold these correctly, you always want to make sure the flat end is up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to line it up with my score line. So I'm going to come into my score line, line it up with my score line, and I'm going to pull down and away from my face. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that to a couple pieces here. So I line it up with my score line, and I pull down and away from my face. And I'm making these pieces just a little bit bigger so it's visible on camera. And it's just that easy. Now, I might come to a point where the pieces are getting so small, and I'm glad this just happened, the pieces are getting so small that it's hard for me to hold it with my other hand and break it. So what you might want to consider is getting another pair of combo pliers and using them in conjunction with each other. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up my first pair right to the score line. I'm not covering it, but I'm right up to it. I'm going to take my other pair, and I'm going to use those to break it apart. So students can sit here, or you can sit here at home and make tons of little pieces of tesserae and get ready to put it on your mosaic. So when we place these on the mosaic, I always think it's a good idea, and this doesn't really fit to this pattern. I would want to make them much smaller, but we want to make sure that we have a square edge And then I want to make sure that the distance between the pieces is no more than about the lead of a pencil apart. And what I have all my students do is I have them lay all their pieces down, every single piece, without gluing first. And they will shift a little bit, but it's really good to do this so they know how much glass they need. And then we glue these down once every single piece is done. Now, some people might want to say, oh, I can just go ahead and glue everything down, but I really don't recommend it because you'll probably run into places where you have gaps and or your pieces get too close together. So you want to leave about a pencil lead's worth of space in between each piece. The other thing I suggest is to not start in the center and let's say like if I did this outside edge here, that wouldn't be too ideal because then I have to work in this tiny space in here. So I always tell my students to think like you're like a printer or a copy machine. You're going to start at one edge and just kind of work your way down. So you might have to switch colors as you do that, but you'll be much happier because your spacing will be correct and you won't have to make tiny little pieces and place stuff in the middle of mosaic pieces that are already present. All right, that concludes this video.